So if you could let Susie know, that'd be great. Susie, can you start the broadcast, please? Excellent. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Vale of Whitehorse Oxfordshire District Council's Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Max Thompson, and I'll be chairing this meeting. This meeting is being held in Abbey House, Abingdon. Voting members are here in person as required, but officers and public speakers are able to join remotely if they wish through Microsoft Teams. The meeting is also being streamed live and recorded on the Council's YouTube channel for public viewing. I have three procedural matters. Firstly, for those joining remotely, when you're not speaking, please ensure your microphone is muted and your camera is off. Public speakers must only have their cameras on and be unmuted when addressing the committee or answering questions of clarification in their designated slots. Number two, if councillors wish to ask a question or participate in debate, please raise your hand and I'll call on you in turn. And three, finally, as a modern council, both officers and members will be using their electronic devices throughout the meeting. I have four housekeeping announcements. The first is evacuation procedure. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate the building by the nearest exit, which is in the corridor immediately to your right. And please go outside and stand at assembly point 9 in the outside area beyond the fire exit. The Democratic Services Officer will assist you. On arriving at the meeting, you should have read the emergency evacuation procedure and signed the fire register, so please inform Democratic Services if you have not. Number two, please can everyone ensure mobile phones are silent or off. Number three, members of the public who wish to leave the meeting after their application has been debated are welcome to do so via the front door and reception who came in through, but please do so quietly. And fourthly, when the meeting has ended, I'll ask for confirmation the live stream has ended. At that point, please leave the virtual meeting if you're joining remotely, or make your way out the building, remembering to sign out as you leave. And just a final point, this is a meeting in public, not a public meeting. And I ask that members of the public attending, both those here in person and those joining virtually, ensure you do not shout out or disrupt the committee's deliberations outside of those who've registered to speak in their allocated slots. Great. Right. So I move on to agenda item 2, which is apologies for absence. Matthew, have you got any apologies this evening?
Yes, Chair. We've had apologies from Councillor Cheryl Briggs, Mike Pickles, and Jill Rayner, and Councillor Catherine Foxall is attending as a substitute for Councillor Briggs.
Thank you so much. And would you mind taking a roll call?
Councillor Ron Batstone.
Present.
Councillor Catherine Foxall.
Yeah.
Councillor Jenny Kennedy.
Here.
Councillor Scott Houghton.
Here.
Councillor Robert Madison.
Present.
Councillor Val Shaw.
Present.
Councillor Max Thompson.
Present. Thank you so much. I now move on to declarations of interest. So I move on to the minutes of the meeting. To sign a correct record of the minutes of our last meeting on the 15th of October. Can I have a proposer and seconder? Proposer?
Well, I was going to say I'd like to make a very minor, or request a very minor, Councillor Rayner's name has been misspelled in several places.
Oh, right.
It's inconsistently spelled through the document, sometimes with an E, sometimes with an O.
Okay, thank you. Well, I will make that amendment when I sign. And so with that minor amendment, are you happy to propose that?
Yes,
Thank you so much. And seconded, I need to take a vote on that. So those in favour that I adopt those, that's unanimous. Thank you so much. I now move on to declarations of interest. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. On item 8, I am the ward member, so I'll be stepping back from the table because I'm speaking on that.
Thank you so much. Perfect. I think that's it. Perfect. And then do we have any urgent business this evening, Tasha?
No.
No urgent business. Okay, very good. And then public participation, just to note, we have a number of speakers on the 3 applications we'll be discussing this evening. And hopefully you've been given guidance on this, but I'm happy to provide further guidance when I call you up in turn, if that's all good. So I'm now going to move on to the first item we'll be considering this evening, which is the land north of Froome Road Harbour campus. However, I just want to check, do we have all our speakers here?
Yes, the one we were waiting for is joined virtually now.
Fantastic. Great. We have all our speakers, so we will go to agenda item 7. Sally, I believe you're presenting this one. Thank you so much.
Chair. So this is a full application for the installation of a 2.4 metre high security fence around the perimeter of site, 2 security kiosks and the installation of 22 CCTV units. The application site is located on the eastern edge of Harwell campus, fronting onto Newbury Road. The site comprises the Moderna site, which is a vaccine manufacturing and research and development facility. The site comprises 2 buildings with car parking to the east and service area to the west. The Moderna facility was approved in April 2023, with the buildings now complete and operational. The application site and wider campus are situated within North Wessex Downs National Landscape. So the site fronts onto Newbury Road to the east here, where there is an existing hedgerow and line of trees. To the north of the site is an open area to where the informal playing pitch is to be relocated. The south of the site is a wooded area to the southeast, and to the southeast is where the new memorial garden and war memorial sculpture is to be located. And it's down here. There is already a security fence around the service yard along here. And the proposal is to extend the fence around the entire site, including the front of house and car parking area to the front here. The proposed kiosks are to be located at each of the site entrances, so one here and one over here. And the CCTV units to be fixed to the existing lighting columns around the perimeter of the site and within the car park. The plan indicates where additional landscaping is proposed around the site's boundaries. However, further details of the planting specification are required by planning condition, and this is to ensure that there is an increase in height of some of the planting to break up the mass and regularity of the fence. I'll just run through some plans submitted. So this is the plans and elevations of one of the kiosks that is to be situated at the service yard, and the other one which is to be at the front of the site by the staff car park. And this is just an elevation of the typical elevation of the fence proposed. As I said, it's 2.4 meters high, and it's a mesh fence coated in black. I'll just run through now some of the illustrative visuals which give an indication of how the fence will appear in context. Each view is shown twice to show the difference between the appearance in summer, which will be on this side, and then winter on this side here. So this is just the site entrance, showing the main entrance into the kind of the staff car park at the front of the site. Moving on. So this is just the corner of the research and development building, and due to the site levels, as you can see here, the fence will be positioned slightly higher to allow space for landscaping on the grass verge in front. It's just another side elevation of that research and development building. Again, you can just see the fence here, which will be seen in context with that building there. And then this is a long-range view looking from the Newbury Road, looking south across to the buildings here. You can see the existing trees and hedgeline along frontage here as well. And this is just a close-up version of how that will appear through from Newbury Road, with the fence sitting behind this hedgerow and the tree planting here. Just to run through some site photos now. So this is looking. This photo here is from the memorial site, looking towards the buildings, and then here we're looking from the Newbury Road towards the buildings here. It's just photos from the site entrance. So you've got Newbury Road here, and the site entrance coming in here, and the staff car park just in the background here. And then continuing down Newbury Road, looking north up this way, you see the existing hedgerow and trees, and then looking back to the south, and this area here in particular is where the hedgerow is to be extended to fill in this gap up to this path here. And then looking south between the fence line position along the car park here, and then the existing hedgerow and tree planting along here. And then looking across, again, long range view, then capturing the building and where the fence will be positioned along here. And this is where this area here is where the playing pitch is to be relocated. And now we're looking at the back of the site here. So this is within the campus itself. You can see already the existing streetlights are in position, and this is where the CCTV units are to be fixed on this particular part. And this is the service area at the back, and this is just the entrance here. looking into the service area and where one of the kiosks is to be located. And again, just the site entrance into the service yard, and then looking back towards Newbury Road along here. And again, corner of the building, looking towards the frontage then of the site and the main entrance. And then again, this will be the memorial site and where the sculpture is to be along the east here, looking towards the front. And as you can see again, this is the grass verge that I was referring to earlier, and where the fence will be positioned above. And then this is just the space in between the new buildings, the two buildings where the fence is to be located across. The position of the kiosk building here into the site entrance, into the staff entrance here. So the scheme has been brought forward in response to an identified need for improved site security to safeguard the premises from potential threats. The security measures are supported by both Thames Valley Police and in consultation with counter-terrorism. It's acknowledged that a security fence will result in noticeable and adverse impact on the character and appearance of the local landscape and is considered to diminish the quality of the development approved. However, both the existing and proposed landscaping around the site will provide a degree of visual mitigation and will assist in softening views and reducing the overall prominence of the proposal. Given that the security needs are specific to the current occupier, it's acknowledged that this could change in the future where there is a lesser security requirement for future occupiers, and therefore it's considered that a planning condition that restricts the fence only to the current occupier is reasonable. Taking these considerations together, it's acknowledged that the development would cause some harm to the character and appearance of the site. However, on balance, the benefits of securing the site and ensuring safe operation would outweigh the harm identified. As such, the application is recommended for approval, subject to the planning conditions as set out in Appendix 1 of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sally. We'll return to you for some questions once we've heard from our speakers on this application. So our first speaker on this application is a representative of Chiltern Parish Council, Councillor Evan Bass. Are you there, Councillor Bass?
I am indeed. Can everyone hear me and see me?
Excellent. Good evening. We can see you and we can hear you. I have 3 minutes to address the committee, and then we may have some questions of clarification for you when you're done. So please, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair, councillors and members of the community. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today regarding the proposed security fence surrounding the Moderna facility. I would like to address the key justifications provided for the fence and explain why, in this context, they do not constitute a proportionate or necessary response. Firstly, the claim that the southern boundary lacks formality does not consider the location and nature of the site. The facility sits in a rural area surrounded by open countryside, not an urban environment with high levels of footfall, opportunistic access, or crime. The argument that entrances, car parks, and windows are exposed to the public realm does not accurately reflect the reality that the public realm here consists of fields, hedgerows, and limited passers-by. No evidence has been presented that this exposure has resulted in security incidents or credible threats. We are also told that the fence, combined with CCTV and lighting, is a crucial component of the security strategy. But again, no demonstrable need has been provided. Other comparable facilities across the country operate effectively and safely without such perimeter fortifications, even in far more populated or higher risk settings. If this level of security were genuinely essential, it would already be standard practice elsewhere. The justification relating to protest management similarly lacks grounding in local reality. This is an area with no history of disruptive protest activity. Planning policy should not assume future disorder without evidence. Measures intended for crowd control in urban or politically sensitive sites are not applicable to a quiet rural research building. The reference to the security principles of deter, detect, delay, and respond is noted. However, such principles must be applied proportionately. A 2-meter welded mesh fence constructed to a standard normally associated with high-risk industrial or defense sites goes well beyond what is required for a facility in a low-risk, low-access environment. The suggestion that such a fence will reduce opportunistic theft also lacks substantiation, given the remote location, limited public access, and absence of incidents of this nature. Regarding threats described as cyber or physical, Cyber threats are not mitigated by perimeter fences, and no credible evidence of physical threats has been presented that justifies a structure of this scale. Finally, the proposed planting, including thorny subspecies deliberately selected for security purposes, further demonstrate that this design is being treated as defense structure rather than proportionate boundary treatment consistent with surrounding rural environments. In summary, the proposed fence is not justified by evidence, it is not proportionate to the actual risks, and is not in keeping with the character of the area. It imposes an unnecessary and intrusive physical barrier without meeting the planning requirements of demonstrable need. Surely some weaponized shrubbery should suffice. I respectfully urge the committee to recognise that while safety and security are important, they must be balanced with proportionality, landscape impact, and factual risk assessments. In this case, that balance has not been achieved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bass. So I'll see if there are any questions for you from members of the committee. Does anyone have any questions for Councillor Bass? I can't see any, so I'll say thank you very much for your time this evening, and thank you for putting forward your argument. I will now turn to our second category of speakers. We've got Stuart Carroll and Stephen Roberts. Are you both speaking, or is one of you speaking?
It will just be myself.
Perfect.
Steve might come up in case you've got questions.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, as with all of our speakers, you'll have 3 minutes when you're ready, and then there may well be some questions of clarification for you from the committee afterwards. So please, 3 minutes when you're
Thank
ready.
you very much, Chair. I'm Stuart Carroll, Director of Market Access Policy Affairs for Moderna. Thank you very much to officers for the comprehensive report and the recommendation received, and thank you to councillors and members for their consideration this evening. I'd just like to kick off by acknowledging that I do understand there's been some challenges, issues getting to this place with the report, and we are very keen to be good neighbours and keen to continue to learn how we can best interact with the local authority. That is absolutely imperative because this is a significant investment, and effectively site is Moderna's second home to the US, and we want to make sure that we play our part in that regard. I think to get to the nub of the matter, the fence is needed on security grounds. You've got the advice from the police and counter-terrorism. We know from our interactions with the security agencies within government, this is paramount. And I just want to remind everyone that this site isn't just a Moderna site. We have a strategic partnership with government over 10 years. And this site, in the event of a future pandemic, would be converted into a vaccines pandemic production site. And previously, in the COVID-19 pandemic, I actually worked in the heart of government on the vaccines task force, and amongst other things was helping to assess risks, threats, and help organise security across various sites. And I can assure you this is standard practice in terms of what is being requested. And actually, if you go to any other manufacturing site within the life sciences pharmaceutical sector, actually the security provisions are in some cases a lot greater than what's being proposed here. The fencing is necessary from a broader control point of view. I've walked the site several times with our security team and looked at that in quite a lot of detail, and I'm satisfied that it's appropriate. As was mentioned in the officer's opening address, it will be consistent with the fence that's already in place at the back of the site. So it will be a consistent visual look across the board. And I think what's also important is we are committed to ensuring that the landscaping of the passage at the front is done appropriately. We know the officer's comments about needing taller plants, and very happy to help collaborate with the local authority to get that to the place that is needed. But I'd just say in conclusion that from a critical security point of view, and when we look at the risks and the threats, it is required. At the moment, we're having to invest heavily in human resource to secure the site, and that just isn't sustainable. And in the event of a future emergency, that would not be sustainable for the local area or indeed the United Kingdom. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Right, I'll turn to see if there are any questions for you.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to pick through some of the one of the comments that I've seen in a lot of the written responses to this, which is that this should have been put on the original application a few years ago. I'm curious what's changed since then that this fence is suddenly required when it wasn't then.
Yeah, I can an answer to that. So I think with the original application, we were in a position where we had a very significant investment decision that had to be made, and our CEO was looking at all sorts of countries in which to invest, and we wanted to go and submit the application as quickly as possible because it was going to affect investment decisions if we were to be delayed. That was one of the principal reasons for why we went ahead. Also, I understand that Harwell campus did give some advice initially that we should go ahead with the application and then return to look at the fencing application. I don't know, Steve, if you want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, so I acted for Harwell Science and Innovation Partnership on the planning application for the main facility. And such was the pace at which the deal between Moderna and government was going through, and the need to get planning permission and be on site, spades in the ground by a certain point to enable Moderna to occupy according to the contract with government. Design was ahead of planning almost, so we were at a design stage which was sufficient for planning, but not at such a detailed design stage which enabled them to know the security requirements. So at the time, the only security requirement we were aware of was around the service yard, which is why the scheme included that security fencing. Beyond that, it had just simply hadn't developed far enough for us to know what further security measures might have been needed, which is of course unfortunate, very unfortunate.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Please, Councillor Hanby.
Yeah, so we've got the road coming through, and so was that something that persuaded you that because people could come off the road quite quickly? So was that one of the thoughts that you had when you secured the site, when you walked round the site, when you had an idea of the site and what you were going to produce for us? And it sounds excellent that we have you here in Harwell. So what was that the sort of thing that prompted you when you had a better chance to walk round and see where it was? We've got the lovely monument which we celebrate each year, so you know that, of course.
Yeah, so we have a expert security team which has looked at the whole site holistically, and I've been part of that in terms of wanting to be satisfied for this is absolutely necessary, because it is an investment, of course, to put these kind of security features in place. So it's not a trivial consideration for us as an organisation. And that is one consideration, but also taking the police's advice and counter-terrorism. Also through the strategic partnership, we coordinate with government very closely on a whole range of risks. And we have seen with other sites, other companies, the challenges with security. I speak with colleagues all the time, and it is something that we have to be very aware of and vigilant of. And in the event of the site being required for pandemic purposes, we'd need to be in a position where we could go straight away, move straight away. We couldn't be in a situation where we would have to be erecting temporary fencing. It just wouldn't be a sustainable or appropriate situation. So we've tried to be as balanced as we can be. Like I say, with some other sites I go to across the industry, the security arrangements are a lot more strict and stern. So I think this is quite moderate, actually, when you look at it across the industry as a whole.
And kiosks, normally, if you go around larger institutes, I'm thinking about Williams and people like that, and people on the roads, that we have got those security just to make sure who's coming through, etc. So I don't think that is anything unusual. Is that why you're having the kiosk?
Yes, that's correct. It's just really for that purpose, so we have that vigilance.
Thank you. Councillor Vauxhall.
Thank you, Chair. We heard from Councillor Bass from Shilton that he didn't think that there was evidence that this kind of fence was necessary. Are there actual examples of where there have been protests at similar facilities? Can you kind of give us concrete examples that say, actually, this is where these kind of things that we're talking about have happened. Obviously, we have recently been through a pandemic, so perhaps if these kind of threats were manifest, there's kind of key example.
Yes, so when I was working for the Vaccines Task Force in government, there were examples of this around various manufacturing sites or distribution sites where we had to put enhanced security in place, and that was elevated, particularly in that situation, because of the emergency nature of the pandemic. But if you look across the whole pharmaceutical industry and life sciences industry, there have been a range of examples of where there have been protests near sites. I, for example, used to work for Sanofi, and there were issues there where we had protesters. It was a problem because we didn't have a perimeter fence and we didn't have secure arrangements. My father worked in manufacturing for years, actually, and even as a child, I had to be briefed on security protocols because of the nature of certain threats. I really wouldn't want anybody to go away and underestimate the nature of these threats. They're very serious, and hence why we've coordinated with the police and counter-terrorism. So we're not coming forward with anything that we don't think is necessary. We want it to be appropriate. We want it to be balanced. We're committed to working with the council to ensure that, as exemplified by the passage and the footway. And I can assure you, because I've been through this in excruciating detail with my security team, the fence that's already in place at the back is going to be exactly the same around the perimeter, because that was one of the questions I had, and it's going to be the same look, the same feel. If we don't have the fence, the reality, what we'll have to do is we'll have to keep looking at temporary solutions and erecting temporary solutions when, risks increase, and that's just not good for anyone. It's going to be ugly, it's going to be unattractive, it's not going to be sensible. So I think this is proportionate and it is reasonable. That's a short.
Yeah, I mean, you essentially just argue that sort of other pharmaceutical companies have needed security for many, many years. So essentially, you did know that you needed this when you put in that original application. And I don't see that that you're arguing essentially now that circumstances have changed and therefore you need fencing.
Well, I think, as Steve said, we had some challenges because of pace and rapidity, and this was still at the back end of the pandemic, where we were moving quite quickly with government on a whole range of things. But we did know we required certain security arrangements, hence why the fence that's already in place is at the back. But this is on the back of additional risk assessment based on learnings from the pandemic as well, and also information we get from our security teams across a range of sites. So we have sites in Canada, Australia, the US, around the world, and we have to continue to be vigilant in terms of updating our understanding of what is required to handle those risks. And we've had similar kinds of problems at those other sites. And so you have to be a bit Bayesian about this. You want to put the least amount of requirement in place because you don't want to have an ugly fortified site. We don't want it to be Fort Knox, but similarly, we've got to have it sufficiently secure to allow the work that needs to be done. And so there's an element of learning from updated risk assessments.
Yes, well, sorry, I still think that you knew that you would need this before you put in the.
We certainly knew we were going to need some form of security arrangement, but we couldn't at that point be clear specifically on what it would be. And also, it's a partnership with government, and we have to liaise with government as our partner on everything in the contract. And that's an element that has been illuminated as part of pandemic preparedness plans. We, for example, only ran our first simulated pandemic preparedness workshop with government about a year ago. And guess what? One of the big things that came out of it was security. And actually, is the security sufficient on the site as it is? And the conclusion was no. And hence why we've also come forward with this package.
I'll see if there are any further questions. Any further, Councillor Hannaby?
Yeah. So security, there is security on site. as we know, those that know the area. That you've obviously had a conversation with the local constabulary and our police around, have you?
Yes, our security.
Because I see, you know, I read, yeah. So that you've taken advice as well from them as well.
Yes, our security team has had liaison with. I don't know if you've got anything to add there, Steve.
So, I mean, there's been extensive. I mean, that's part of the issue at the point at which the planning application went in. Those discussions with the various advisors, the police, counter-terrorism hadn't happened. So that's been happening over the last 12 to 18 months, I think. And that's essentially informed the schemes before you.
Thank you, Roger. I mean, we're asking questions of clarification, so if we can try and keep the responses relatively brief, but thank you so much. Any further questions of clarification? In which to say thank you very much for your time this evening. We'll now turn to our final category of speaker before we open up some questions to our officer, and that's Councillor Deborah Dewhurst. Councillor Dewhurst, are you there?
Hi, I am here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you and we can see you. And as with everyone else, you'll have 3 minutes when you're ready, and then maybe some questions of clarification for you. So please, when you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors. I just wanted to reiterate the concerns of residents. I know some have already been raised by Chiltern Parish Council, but I just wanted to reiterate those. And the main one being that the obtrusiveness of this fence. I mean, it doesn't really make sense to residents. When Moderna were looking for a site on the campus, they specifically chose a site that was at the front of the development. They wanted to be visible, they wanted to be seen, they wanted a prime location. There are 2 to 3 million square feet still available on the campus for development. They could have had a location that was within the campus, at the back of the campus. If they were worried about security, they could have picked a different location. They chose a prime location at the front of the campus. And they assured us, as has been said tonight, that they would be good neighbours, that they would do good landscaping, that the Moderna building would feel part of the community. And actually, at the moment, it does. It looks beautiful. I think it's fitted in well. It feels part of the campus. But putting this massive fence around it, like a prison fence, is just going to cut it off from that being a good neighbour. As has been said already, we're not sure that the justification is there. We haven't seen any security threats. I understand that these could come in the future, but actually, as has already been said, we're in a very rural area. It's among a science campus with other science buildings, other buildings that need high security as well. And actually, I wonder if a fence might actually draw more attention to it than it helps. As has also been said this evening, it is on the site next to the War Memorial. So every year in June, there's a D-Day service at that memorial marking D-Day. So the site of the Moderna building is on the old runway where the planes took off for the D-Day landings in Normandy. And so people from all over the county, the country, gather there in June on D-Day to mark those men that gave their lives for our freedom, taking off to Normandy. And it just doesn't sit right with Chiltern residents that when they stand there, they're going to look at this giant prison fence, which is the opposite of freedom. It just really doesn't sit right. So, and also the fact that it feels sneaky. It feels sneaky that it wasn't in the original application. But that's all I've got to say. That I just wanted to bring those concerns to the table.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
I'll see if there are any questions or clarification for you. Yes, I don't see any, so I'll say thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you.
I'm now going to turn to questions for our officer. So does anyone have any questions for our officer? I can't see you as well.
I had to go.
I think Councillor Horton may be first, so you go first.
I'd like to hear what you say.
Well, it's 2 technical questions, I think. Firstly, around the height of the fence, so I'm looking at the plan, excuse me, which is stating 2 metres, but there's comments from, I think it was one of the parish councils saying up to 6.5. Could you just confirm for me what is going on with the height of that and where different numbers might be coming from?
So I think so essentially the plan that was submitted showing the elevation of the fence is just a typical elevation, and I think on that plan it says it kind of varies from 2 meters to 5 meters. Okay. But on the layout plans, the general arrangement plans, they've specified in there in terms of being 2.4 metres in height, and that's also in the planning statement. And that's what we've assessed it on in terms of that base.
So 2.4 metres is the maximum height at any point from ground level.
Yes, although I appreciate there is that section where I said about on the corner where those line levels, obviously that will be from that.
It'll stay level as flat.
Yeah.
And then the second one was, so how are you concerned around lighting? Because I noticed that there seemed to be an awful lot of issues getting the lighting plans approved for this original project. The CCTV is only going on existing light poles. There's not any more being put in.
No, so yes, I am aware of the issues with the lighting. I haven't been dealing with that. One of my colleagues has, but that has now, from my understanding, now been resolved. Like the condition relating to lighting columns on the original application has been approved, and I believe our enforcement team are involved with that and are confirming that essentially is what's been
and for clarity
built on site.
There's not any more columns going in. It's just going on the existing ones.
Just going on the existing ones.
Thank you.
Sam.
Yeah. Well, I mustn't go into debate. So the question is, I see that we've consulted different people that we have to go out, yeah, and there's no objections.
No objections.
And in fact, the police have proposed supported this because of maybe potential, because we don't know what's around the corner at the moment in the world as it is. So you're quite satisfied that you've consulted all the people you need to. I see the heritage and also for the fencing, landscape. None of those have objected.
No, we don't have any technical.
And they know that the memorials offices as well, which I attend every June. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So fine. That's all. As long as I'm quite clear that everybody has been consulted and you have had no objections.
Yes. Yeah. And all the summaries of the responses, obviously.
Yes, I heard, but I just want them for you to say out loud,
yes,
in case people
of course
hadn't read them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I actually have a question which is to do with the landscaping condition. So I'm glad to see there's a landscaping scheme condition. Just two things. Firstly, compared to the approved application we've already got in this application, what is going to be, is there going to be an enhancement to landscaping were we minded to approve this application? And the second one is, I know there's no current objection from the landscape architect, but there were 3 holding objections prior to this. So it seems like the landscape architect's going to spend quite a lot of time reviewing that landscaping scheme. So maybe you could just detail the sorts of things in your discussions with the landscape architect that we envisage being part of that scheme where we minded to approve.
Yeah, so the main things that our landscape officer is looking for is an additional kind of some height in some of the landscaping proposed, just to help to break up the massing of the fence. I think as part of the application, we were trying to resolve the landscaping for it to be a compliance condition, but we just couldn't quite get there in terms of getting it right. There was a few confusions between the approved plans and the proposed plans, but I'm confident, and our landscape officer is confident, that we will be able to get something agreed through a planning condition, hence why there's no objection from her, subject to that being dealt with by planning condition.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions for our officer? Councillor Foxall.
Thank you. I'd just like to, on page 15, the very last comment from Thames Valley Police, they say the proposed fence is a fundamental security requirement for the site, proportionate to its national importance and consistent with likely future CNI security standards. Is that saying that, is that talking about the likely future designation of this site as a CNI, or is it referring to CNI security standards in general that might be coming in the future?
Yeah, so I think that's kind of expanded on a little bit at paragraph 7.6 of the report, where I think since then it's actually been confirmed that the site has now been designated as critical national infrastructure. So the comments are made in relation to that.
So it is. I guess, sorry, if I may just follow up immediately. Is there a kind of set of clear security standards that as officers you have regard to related to places that are allocated as?
So my understanding is there is some guidance around from the National Protective Security Authority. We don't necessarily. I've been relying on terms of the responses we've been getting from Thames Valley Police and counter-terrorism, who obviously review that as part of their assessment.
Any further questions for Officer Councillor?
Sorry, this is Just a little clarification for me. So if this has been designated as critical national infrastructure, why is it being decided on by us and not by NIPS? Why is it not counted as going through the national scheme? It's just, I'm confused. If it's counted as critical national infrastructure, why is it not going through that system? Why has it come to local authority?
I'm not sure. We to do with the scale of the development. I think nationally important infrastructure projects are of a certain scale and threshold that would go to that department rather than things of a scale that would come forward here. So I think they're different designations and different technical standards.
Thank you.
Any final questions before we move into debate? Right, in which case I'm going to suggest we move into debate, and to do so I need a motion. So could someone please put forward a motion on this application?
I'd put forward a motion to agree with the recommendations by our officers.
Okay, does that have a second? Councillor Manson. So you'll have us. Okay, I open the floor to debate. Councillor Hannigan.
Yes, well, those of us that watched Harwell, had our fathers work there and watched Harwell grow, it's developed into a different place now than what it was when it first went up, and we're getting more now areas. The world is becoming a rather more dangerous place, and I think anyone who's going to put in, as you've just heard by the government has said, that we need to look at each individual area to decide. And I understand that in business it's very quick. Sometimes you just have to grab what is there to secure to come into Harvard, if you know what I mean, because people do want to come in. So I understand the statement that was made to us that they had to move to secure. And then obviously, by the sound of it, then the discussions, when they had more time, the discussions about the security came on board. So I'm reasonably okay with that situation, because I think we'll find probably there'll be more on the things that come onto the site eventually that we'll probably have to have further. I understand Harwell because we have got that lovely monument across that we go to once a year, and it is great. A lot of money been spent on it, and it's much appreciated. But then I also appreciate what's coming to our area, and I think we should support where we can. And I see no objections. I go thoroughly through the consultees. I see no objections. All I see is the police agreeing that we should have more security. So that's really why I'm supporting this.
Thank you. Councillor Foxall.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very sympathetic to the argument from our Moderna colleague about the need for security, having had a husband who used to work for Huntingdon Life Sciences, and hearing his stories of what he had to drive past each day. But equally, rounded about Harwell Culham, we've got Diamond Light Source, Space Agency, we've got nuclear fusion, we've got all kinds of really sensitive, important places. And I've always been struck by how open all of these campuses are. So I'm kind of not sure. I think it's a shame because it's such a visible fence. Yeah, no, absolutely.
I think just to put in my 2 pence there, I mean, Councillor, I kind of agree with you. I mean, it's an on-balance decision. We have to weigh up the security needs that have been presented with the impact it's going to have on the AONB, right? And it's not an easy decision for us. I think on balance, I'm likely to vote to approve this, and the reason for that is that I'm reassured that the landscaping scheme is going to be taken into serious consideration, and also I know that it's a personal information. So just for this applicant on this side at this time, I think that, and I rather suspect, although I can't know to what comes before us, I rather suspect that had it come with the fence in its original guise, probably I would have supported it then, assuming it was a personal permission with significant landscaping. So I'm likely to support this motion, but that's where I stand at the moment. Any further debate? Councillor Manson.
Thanks, Chair. Just to make a quick remark, as I seconded the motion, just thinking about it in terms of preparedness for a possible future pandemic. It strikes me as being quite a sensible measure, especially if a need for a fence or some additional type of security measures aren't there now, have been identified through simulations or whatever work the police or Moderna or government have done to identify this need. For me, means this is quite a sensible thing to do.
Any further comments on this? That's about statement.
I think just to reiterate what other people have said, and as a planning committee, we really can't, we don't have the knowledge to look at security considerations, and I think we must take security advice from the police and the terrorism authorities. I mean, it's not for us to question their opinion, I don't think. So, yes, I think we ought to support.
Okay, I'm going to suggest we take a vote on this application. There's no further comments. So all those in favour of the motion to approve? Those against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's 5 for 2 abstentions. So that is approved. Thank you very much. I now move on to the next item on the agenda, which is agenda item 8, 16 Cumnor Hill.
Page is it on? Page is it on? Sorry.
It starts on page 14. Page 14.
No, I didn't find that. That's gone a bit further, and I thought, oh, where are we?
It's all right. It begins on page 40. So I just remind everyone we're still being live streamed.
Right,
so
thank you. Right, together.
Excellent. Very good. Right. So yes, return to 16 Cumnor Hill, and Catherine, you're presenting on this one. So please, when you're ready, thank you.
Thank you.
So the next application to be considered is a proposal for the redevelopment of number 16 Cumnor Hill in the form of 7 flats. It shows the site layout with the Cumnor Hill just here, and the blue outline of the existing dwelling is shown there, and then extending back to meet dwellings along Martin's Close at the back. Concerns have been raised over the design, scale and depth of the building, conflict with the character of the immediate area, and consequently conflict with the neighbourhood plan. These neighbourhood plans are specifically policies DBC1, which is to maintain the common 1- and 2-storey character, provide active frontages and retain mature trees and hedgerows. Policy DBC3, to retain the low density character. This is done through reflecting the small scale and fragmented building patterns, maintaining visual gaps, ensuring soft boundary treatments, and ensuring that new driveways and accesses are no wider than is essential. And also policy DBC5, which identifies Lower Cumnor Hill as an area of special local character. Development in this area must have full regard to the characteristics that contribute to its significance, and also any harm or loss to its character or appearance. And this slide indicates the elevations as originally submitted, with the 2-storey gable fronts, the same height as the ridge line, just here, and that was also the same on the rear elevation, and also with the main ridge line continuing at the same height all the way back into the site. And the next slide shows how the gable has been set down at the front, and also to the rear, and the roof lines have been staggered as it extends back into the site, and the building drops down to follow the sloping topography. Roof windows on the front have also been made smaller but increased in number. And this was done to create a building more akin to a two-storey building as viewed from the street. The next slide shows the outline of the building in relation to neighbouring buildings. It should be noted that the two blocks of flats to the east, here, and the pictures on the right-hand side, these were approved before the neighbourhood plan, and the design and character policies and the neighbourhood plan were introduced to protect against similar types of development. There is not a policy which precludes flats, but each case must be considered on its merits, having regard to the character impacts and the development plan as a whole. The proposed footprint is larger than other dwellings nearby, but as viewed here, it does not significantly differ from the established plot pattern. The building is set back in the site and would be set down from the road by virtue of the topography of the site, which drops down towards Martin Place back. The front elevation retains the character of a two-storey dwelling. Officers consider the design, scale and depth do not differ significantly from the established character of the area, and there is no conflict with the neighbourhood plan design and character policies. The next few slides give an idea of the character on Cumnor Hill. So you can see here that building setback from the road frontage, and the sort of leafy green character, and generally long plots. This photo shows the front of the site. So you have number 18 to the left. You just about see the flats, the sort of more recent development of the flats to the right. And number 16 is this area with the hedging to the front, so it would be set behind that. A condition is proposed to retain that hedging. This shows the neighbouring flats, one block here, and the brown colour, and then the orangey red beyond that. And the white building here is the existing dwelling for number 16. So you can sort of appreciate where it drops down into the site. The next few pictures show other plots on Cumnor Hill, just giving an idea of the large family dwellings set back into the sites. And again, a selection here. This picture shows the backland developments on the right here, which is to the rear of number 18, almost sort of at the back garden. It's also a selection of other blocks of flats and apartments that are on Cumnor Hill. To finish, this slide shows relationship between number 16 and number 18. It's a small private driveway that runs down to the backland developments. And again, from the back garden, relationship between those two in a closer picture. And then on the other side, you have the relationship between number 16 and the more recent flats. And again, this is how it's appreciated from the rear garden. Just to give you an idea of the length of number 16, the rear garden, and that's what the new building is proposed to sit within. This shows Martin Close on the back boundary, and the backland developments again towards the back boundary, but to the rear of number 18. Finally, just to round off, the officer recommendation is to approve the proposal, and I pass back to the chair and committee to consider the application in more detail.
Thank you very much, Cathy. We'll return to you for some questions as we've heard from our speakers. Our first speaker on this application is Councillor Julie Roberts, speaking as a representative of Cumnor Parish Council. Councillor Roberts, are you there? Councillor Roberts.
Yes, I am there. The reason I'm not with you is because if I was, you'd go down with the same bug I've got.
Well, thank you for attending virtually. We can hear you and we can see you, and as you know, you have 3 minutes when you're ready. So, Councillor Roberts, please begin.
Okay, this application, almost identical, was submitted to this committee just over a year ago. You refused it. It went to a planning inspector, and they supported your decision and also said it should be refused. So I'm slightly concerned as to what the huge differences are. It now seems to be an outline case rather than a full approval. And presumably, knowing knowledge of planning, that does mean that none of the massing and the way the building fits into the landscape, all of those are not really suitable for an outline permission. However, the whole of that planning report has been written up as if they are. So I'm a little confused, but I certainly support all of the various planning documents, the DCB 1, 3 and 5. I would like to move on to the RNE2 from the Cumnor Parish Council. Buildings in this area, when you read that special report they've done, it says, you know, one of the things we asked people to do in this area was to do borehole tests, and they have in that report, and it failed completely because of the density of the clay. So it clearly demonstrates that there's an runoff problem in this area. All the people in Rose Gardens and some of the ones in Martin Close could tell you that, because when they were building 12 and 14, their gardens were flooded for 2 years. Because what happens is, or even though they build the system, they will not turn it on until the pumps are all connected up to the electricity. So you can have a wonderful subsystem, but it's not working. And so it doesn't actually get the water away until the whole thing is finished. It says you mustn't, you must build this before the completion, but I would rather have a condition that says that you must be functional before above slab level, because that way you will stop the surrounding residents being flooded. 2 of the examples you were given of Cumnor Hill are not in the lower specialist area, they were at the top of the hill. And I would be interested to know by what amount that this particular building has been stepped back at the back. I'm mindful of a planning report that went to the City Council where they said, oh, we've reduced the ridge height, and actually they've reduced the ridge height by 1 metre. So I would be interested to see how much from the original one that was refused by the planning inspector, this actually has been stepped back at the rear, because the level at the rear equates to the first floor habitable rooms of those buildings in Martin's Close. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Roberts. I'll just check if there are any questions or clarification. I can't see any, so I'll say thank you very much for your time this evening, Councillor Roberts. And now we move on to our second speaker on this item, Professor Nicholas Perkins. Professor Perkins, are you there?
Hi, yes, I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you. We can
and
see you, and
yeah, I'm also attending virtually because I've probably got that same bug, and so I don't want to kill you all.
We very much appreciate your consideration, so thank you.
Okay, thanks. So apologies if I cough too much or whatever. But so yeah, thanks very much. Would you like me to make a start now?
Please do, please do.
Great. So thank you very much for having given me the chance to speak. My name is Nicholas Perkins. I live in Martin Close, basically at the bottom of the garden of this house. And so I'm speaking also on behalf of my neighbours. And I think my main message is to emphasise what I think are the really clear, reasoned objections to the proposal in the Cumnor Parish Council response, and some of the other objections to these plans. So I'm just going to pick out a couple of issues. The application states that earlier plans for flats on this site were withdrawn after advice from planning officers saying that the building was too large. So there was a withdrawn application. And the applicant's statement says that their new plans reduce the scale of the building, but they don't really do that. This building is, and according to the parish council, is bigger than the withdrawn plans earlier. There's absolutely no way that this can be described as a 2-storey building. And that's the maximum that the neighbourhood plan states is appropriate for this area. I saw that your colleague went as far as saying it was more akin to 2-storey, but this is not a 2-storey building. So it doesn't meet local plan policy 37 or neighbourhood plan policy DBC 1. I think the particularly concerning thing is there's no real like detail here about the levels, but other people have mentioned like lack of information about so-called slab levels. So we don't know really how dominant this building will be. And when again your colleague was talking about moving the house back from Cumnor Hill so it wouldn't be seen so much, the more you do that, the more it will loom over the buildings in, for example, Martin Close, which are way down the hill. It's a really steep hill at this point. It's a really deep building with then parking at the back. So there's a whole range of things where it could be really dominant there. And that's exactly the kind of thing that in the previous refused application, which then went to appeal, the planning inspector was really strong on that and said, yeah, this is an area of special local character. It needs protecting. It's not appropriate to do what you're doing. So there's a real, very recent sort of guidance from a planning inspector to take care about that. The planning policy that relates to that, DBC 5, is the one that makes Lower Cumnor Hill an area of special local character. And I don't think there's any way that these plans could be said to take that into account, which is what they need to do. Councillor Roberts mentioned the lack of, thank you, Councillor Roberts mentioned the lack of attention to flood risk. I think that's really important. There's a whole long complicated set of proposed conditions about drainage, which weren't there earlier. But in any like future approved plan, there's a whole range of conditions that would need to be put into place to make this acceptable, in my view. So there are policies that it doesn't meet. There's all sorts of problems with it, and that's the view of a lot of the neighbours in the neighbourhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Perkins. I think we're bang on 3 minutes. So I'll ask the committee if there are any further questions for clarification.
But if I may, so the local plan at Cumnor that doesn't actually preclude having flats. So if someone wanted to put a building with flats there, and the officers managed to get get what they think is correct as they understand planning rules, would you still object to it?
Is that a question for me?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, not at all.
I beg your pardon. Sorry, I meant.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, I couldn't really see a bit bluntly because sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So no, and in fact, I think these plans, in my view, are a bit better than the plan to have a massive house in the back garden, which would only have accommodated, say, 2 families on this site. So this is like more dense, which is actually a good thing in a way. But the special character of the area, all that kind of stuff, says houses of 1 or 2 stories, and talks about a whole range of other things. So I'm not against there being like multiple occupancy buildings. But I think if you wanted to do that, you need to make it really look much more like an individual house, which is the whole point of the neighbourhood plan. So the point of the neighbourhood plan was to say no more huge flats, no more things that like destroy the neighbourhood. And so those other buildings that your colleagues showed are not appropriate to like as comparators, because they were built before the plan was adopted, and the plan was adopted in order to prevent that kind of development in the future.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions? I can't see any, so I'll say thank you very much, Professor Perkins, for joining us this evening. I now call upon our final speaker on this application, Councillor Horton. Excellent. Well, good evening. You know the rules, so 3 minutes when you're ready.
Sorry if I did.
Indeed, please, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors. Yes, hopefully most of you will remember when we looked at this application around about a year ago. And as has been mentioned before, that was not the first recent application on this site. Prior to that, there was an application to build a block of 9 flats on the site. That was withdrawn, as has been mentioned. The current plan is for 7 flats, which at face value sounds smaller. Unfortunately, it's not. It is 7 larger flats as opposed to 9 smaller ones. So the overall building is larger. I want to make it clear to the committee that while it seems like the main problem with the application last time, which was the house in the back garden, has been removed, and yes, that does improve this application, all of the other problems with it still remain. It is still a larger building than both surrounding buildings and then what is currently there, there are still an awful lot of issues with potential flooding. We are still lacking information on slab levels, which was something that was brought up in the previous application on this site. And overall, all of the same arguments that were made last time are still true, with the exception of the fact that there is no longer a house in the back garden. That pretty much concludes what I have to say.
Thank you very much. I actually have a question of clarification for you, which is to do with the common neighbourhood plan.
Yes.
So we've got these three policies: DVC 1, 3, and 5.
Mm-hmm.
So we've heard from our officer, and indeed we'll probably address questions to our officer afterwards, that our officer feels that it does accord with the neighbourhood plan. In the clearest way possible, what is your view on this? Why would you take a different view that this application does not conform with DVC 1, 3, and 7? Just so I get it clear in my head what the rationale is.
So as best I can understand it, without holding them up in front of me.
Sure. Understood. Yeah.
Those three combined, I can't remember which order of them is. One of them is essentially the special local character area. Yes. The character is still very much true. It is still in that area. This is still a larger building, and it's the mass of the building being proposed is still too big for that site. I'm struggling to remember which one the other ones are.
That's right. So yes, I've got.
But fundamentally, that is what my view of it is. The mass of the building is still too big for the site, with the backing of those three policies.
Sure. Thank you. Are there any further questions or clarification? Obviously, thank you very much for your time this evening. I will now turn to any questions for our officer. Please, Councillor Matson.
I'm a bit surprised that this is an outline application. What would be the difference between this application and the full application? What hasn't it got in this application?
Okay, so this is an outline application, so it's establishing or trying to establish whether the site is suitable for residential use and for the flats that was proposed. In this case, all matters included other than landscaping. So we can consider scale, height, footprint, appearance, materials. The only thing that sits outside it is landscaping.
So that's what I have a question on this. We've heard a lot from representatives about slab levels. I wondered if you could just comment on that, like why aren't they included and what difference would they make if they were?
Yeah, I think from the plans provided, it's enough to see where the topography sets down and what the buildings proposed, the height, the scale in relation to that topography. And what we have included is a condition asking for slab level details,
right.
And that's to make sure that it goes through the building that is built out is kept at those approved levels, so that we don't suddenly see adjustments in the build out stage.
Okay, and then just one further question. So because this is an outline application, I know that it's pretty much all matters apart from landscaping. Yeah. But am I correct in thinking that there will have to be a reserve matters application on it? Well, we might agree there will be a reserve matters application on the site which will deal with landscaping.
That's right, yes.
Just landscaping?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Councillor Hannaby.
Yes, well, I do understand why they put this in, because it's very expensive to put these things in. I noted the before comments and then the after, and there seems to be no objections for a lot of the issues on the original consultation. I note that like highways and drainage.
We've got one point that highways raised. They were asking for covered secure cycle storage.
Oh yeah.
So there are no objections to the access that have been proposed. And the mine, so it's requesting essentially doors on the stores. Looking at that balance, we feel that's acceptable.
It's cosmetic, as I would call it, not actual the bill. Yeah, so that's what I've looked at. So it's outlined, and we've heard, we know why it's outlined. They know what the local plan is, and this is a way of substantiating what they wish to put there with you, because they've spoken with you and they put their plans in. So, and you are going for, you're going to say that, you know, that you approve this outline.
Yes, I'm recommending approval.
You're recommending, and that is why I've looked at the before and after, and I can't see any what I call major objection. But I do know that Cumney Hill, because I have built a house in Cumney Hill, Cumney Hill has got its issues in some areas for drainage. So that would come out in when they go for a full application.
No, so the drainage matter has to be considered at this stage as a principal matter.
That's what I'm trying to understand. Which one have we got to say?
So drainage is considered at this stage. And I can give additional details.
Yes, you do mind. Thank you. That's what I'm trying to get at, rather long-winded myself.
Yeah, so the drainage comments have concerns over what's been proposed in terms of emergency storage only. And I did push that with the drainage engineer and say, is that a principal objection to this development? And he confirms that you know, the drainage, there was a drainage solution which could be achieved. And so it's not an in-principle objection. There are conditions added for a surface water and a foul water scheme. So we established what that is, you know, what's going to go in the site in the long term. He also asked for a construction surface water management plan. And I think that picks up on the concerns that were raised by speakers over what happens in that development phase to stop water coming off site as it's being built. And that's the purpose of that management plan, to make sure it's managed effectively throughout the build phase, and then the surface water, foul water system is implemented. There are also two further conditions that are compliance conditions or verification conditions to make sure that what was proposed for the site for drainage is actually put in and is operational. And because of the historic concerns over drainage and because of the topography of the site, I think in combination, those 5 conditions are what's needed, what is necessary, but will be an effective solution for the site.
So that was my main concern about the jet, because we've heard that. The rest of it, I'm all right.
Councillor
Thank you, Chair. Please, could you explain a little bit more about whether you've taken into consideration the housing mix as we look at this application? Because core policy 22 suggests that we actually have the highest need for 2-bedroom affordable housing. Now, clearly this is not affordable as designated, but I just wondered if you could explain a little bit to me more about housing mix.
Yeah, I think it can be considered on larger sites because you've got the scope then to implement the sort of percentage between affordable, shared and market housing, particularly in blocks of flats. You wouldn't tend to mix in affordable housing with market housing.
Sure.
So this is being promoted as market housing. That's what we're looking, you know, does it comply or not comply with policy? And I don't think it would be appropriate to sort of try and introduce a mix, or again, because of the scale, because it's less than 10, we wouldn't necessarily be pushing for a mix on this site.
Sorry, I think I obviously didn't explain very well. I was more thinking of a kind of district-wide, what is the need for 2-bedroom generally as a kind of district housing mix?
I haven't got the numbers to hand, but we do know 2-bed, it provides greater sort of long-term, you know, stability of people to move in. So it allows a couple, single person to move in and sort of develop their family. It also allows one person, perhaps a carer, to move in. You've got greater flexibility in 2. You know, sort of post pandemic, there's greater push for one bedroom or one use as a study. So it just sort of gives that greater flexibility.
Catherine, I've got a further question, and if you would mind, is there a way you could put up the conditions again, and not the conditions, the DBC 1, 3 and 5? Because I think that, again, we'll get to debate, but I think for me this is where it really comes in. So I just wouldn't mind seeing the wording of those, and if you could just again just reiterate why it is that your judgment is that it does accord with those aspects of the neighbourhood plan. So yes, it's exactly that slide.
So this is a summarised version.
Of course. Absolutely, but it's, I think particularly DVC1, this idea that maintain a common 1 and 2 story character, providing active frontages, etc. So, so because it is 3 stories, but it's 3 stories setback, is that right? So
it's two and a half. So
yeah.
you've got the 2 clear floors and then accommodation in the roof.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm describing it as 2.5 story,
Sure.
which yes, it's greater than the 2 story that's shown in DVC1. I think considering it in the street scene as a whole, you've got flats which are sort of discounting, but stepping up to that because of the topography, you've got a 2-story dwelling that would be marginally higher. So balancing that out, I don't feel that that's in conflict with the sort of 2-story character that's seen elsewhere along the road.
Thank you. And I don't know if you were in charge, if you were allocated when, because there was, of course, there was the application we saw last year for the backland development, and prior to that, there was this application that was withdrawn for 9 flats. I think we've heard from at least one of our speakers that the 9 flats and the 7 flats are basically the same size and scale. I just wondered if that was accurate in terms of like, I mean, is this a mark? I don't know if you know in terms of its floor, but yeah, sorry.
I can't give the specifics on the footprint size, but I would say that I was involved in the one that was withdrawn and pushed for that to be withdrawn.
Yes.
It did not accord with design policy, character policy, neighbourhood plan policies. I'm also aware of some of the background in the appeal decision for the sort of previous one.
Yeah.
I was just bringing up the plans for the withdrawn one, and the mass, the scale is incredibly bulky. I still stand by that was a clear conflict with the character of the area, with the it didn't sit well with the neighbouring properties. The back was incredibly bulky and could clearly be read as 3-story. So not only had character issues, it also had amenity issues with how it related with Martin Close at the end of the garden. And the appeal case was dealt with by a colleague, but as I understand it, you had the dwelling on the front, and then the dwelling set down back into the site as sort of 2 separate plots. When I read the appeal decision, it was the inspector was suggesting that he didn't have a problem with a dwelling on the frontage. The key concern was the background development, which was a conflict with the established plot patterns, and that was a clear character issue. So coming back to that, we've still got a dwelling on the frontage, but it's significantly deeper and it is higher. And I think that's bringing it back to what we need to look at.
Sure. Thank you so much. Are there any further questions? Councillor Shaw.
Yeah, I'd like to go back to the drainage issues. You've got 5 conditions relating to various aspects of drainage.
Yes.
But Councillor Roberts was saying about Martin Close suffering flooding for 2 years while the flats down there were built. So with the conditions that you're wanting to impose on this, how does that mitigate against, the same thing not happening again?
Yeah, that's where the construction surface water management plan comes in. And so that's a drainage management plan to specifically deal with the construction process.
So you're saying that this would be at a very early stage of the development.
So the first point we need those details up front. Well, between if it was approved, between approval and commencement for the surface water scheme and the foul water scheme, and then before any construction starts on site, that's when we want the construction surface water management plan. So that would go to the drainage engineer, but we would need to know for the whole period of construction how they're going to manage water on site to make sure we don't get water off-site, displacements, engineering works that could disturb that. And I think that's particularly critical, knowing the concerns on the site and the topography of the site as well.
Thank you. Any further questions, or shall we move into debate? I think let's move into debate. For no further questions, thank you very much, Catherine. So can I have a motion on this application?
I've got that we agree the terms of the officers. Now that we've heard where I'm thinking is about the drainage. The drainage was my one issue, but that's my property.
So we have a motion to approve the officer's recommendation.
Yeah.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Madison. Thank you. Right, open the floor to debate.
So if I may, I was here. I was on this committee when we did discuss the other one, but went in and wasn't agreed. So they agreed with us on this situation. I think they've addressed the bulk. From what we could see, there's some really big buildings there with flats in that area, but it was to the rear of the property, if you remember. And I believe that they will be able to address that. But it was the drainage and the flooding and that I was concerned about. So having these 5 points, you know, I have some idea about construction. So having those 5 points there, we could really strengthen those, I believe, when if we decide on it can go. I think we can really make sure that we strengthen those. But I think that this is a different plan than the bulky one that we saw prior.
I think also just to reiterate for those watching and also just to remind ourselves, you know, this is a site that we visited. This is a site that we've considered before, and indeed, I mean, you know, I was part of the decision to refuse the prior application for backland development. It was the right decision. I'm glad that we refused that. I'm glad the inspector supported us on that. You know, I think I do understand the concerns around the neighbourhood plan. I'm particularly attached to supporting neighbourhood plans. But I think, broadly speaking, I'm not sure this conflicts with the neighbourhood plans sufficiently, or even at all. Actually, I think when you look at it from the road, it will seem in keeping. So I think on that basis, I will also be voting to approve this application. Further debate on this, Councillor Madison.
Thank you, Chair. I, as many other members in the room, do remember the previous application from last year. And in fact, I proposed the motion at that meeting that we refuse the application, and it was refused. This time I've seconded Councillor Hannaby's motion that we approve. I believe that the issues present last time around have been resolved and addressed in this new application. My biggest issue with the previous application was the backlands development. If I remember, they were going to put 2 buildings on the plot, and for me at that time really tipped it over into being overdevelopment. The new application, it's set back from the road about as far as the neighbouring buildings. It will be about the same height as neighbouring buildings. It will have a larger footprint in terms of scale than buildings around it, but in my judgment, I don't believe it's excessively larger than other buildings on the road already. And for those reasons, I will be supporting the motion to approve the application.
Any further points? Councillor Foxton.
I wasn't at the previous meeting, so I'm coming to this fresh, I guess possibly without any baggage on this one. Coming from the very west of the district, a very rural ward, I mean, it seems to me that if you're going to approve housing, particularly if it's kind of 2-bed housing, young professionals, perhaps this is precisely the kind of place we should be approving it, because it's on a bus route, it's cyclable into Oxford City. It's, you know, we hear all the time that we need to work with Oxford to provide housing. So I think that's the kind of position I'm coming from. Although I'm quite very sympathetic to the 2-storey concerns of Cumnor and the neighbourhood plan.
Anything further on this? In which case, I'm suggesting we take a vote on this application. We've got a motion to approve the officer's recommendation on this application. All those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? That is 6-0. Thank you very much. Excellent. Right, we now turn to the final application we're considering this evening, which is 81 Oxford Road, Abingdon. And Catherine, you're also presenting on this one. Whenever you're ready. Thank you so much.
Okay, the final application to be considered this evening is a proposal for the redevelopment of 81 Oxford Road to form 5 flats. I have one update since the report was published. The condition wording has now been agreed with the applicants. During the course of the application, amendments were made to the design, setting down the main ridge line, as seen. The red dotted line shows you original plans, and reducing the size of the dormer windows and to the front and to the rear as well. Concerns were raised as part of the consultation that a development of flats of this scale and depth is not consistent with the character of the area, which is predominantly made up of family homes set back from the streets. I will run through a series of photos that give an indication of the local character. The first slide shows the development to the south, which comprises a series of townhouses, shown here with the dormer windows, and the house with the brown roof is number 16, the application site. And then here you can see number 83A and B, and to the north on a similar size plot, but as semi-detached. Here are the townhouses on the right, and the application site is just about visible behind this tree. The back gives you an indication of the width of the plots. And the next photos show other large family dwellings nearby. And also an idea of the trees and the vegetation which contribute to the character of the main road along Oxford Road. Turning next to the building itself, the accommodation would be split across three floors, so two main levels and then accommodation in the roof. But it would be viewed as 2.5-storey building with accommodation in the roof. The footprint would be consistent with the semi-detached dwellings to the north. The depth of the building, although larger than a family home, is consistent with the building line of neighbouring dwellings. For these reasons, the proposed scale, height and footprint are not considered to conflict with the established character of Oxford Road. The next slide shows how the ridgeline steps up slightly between 83A and B to the north. It's just here, stepping up slightly, running up to the townhouses, which are located to the south. The building would be set back from the highway, and the parking area would be softened through vegetation, and the existing hedging along the front would be retained by condition. In this manner, the green character and spacing of the area would not be adversely affected. There is one outstanding highways objection in relation to the bin store. However, the waste management team do not have concerns over the capacity of the bin store. The details and levels of the store are to be secured by condition. The officer recommendation is to approve the proposal. I pass back to the chair and committee to discuss the proposal in more detail.
Thank you very much. We'll hear more speakers, then return back to you for questions. So our first category of speakers are Victoria and Will Wittenbury. Thank you for joining us this evening. I don't know if you're both going to speak or one of you is going to speak. Okay, very good. But you feel free to sit up there if you wish to. You can answer our questions if we've got any. Perfect. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for joining us. You've heard me go on, but 3 minutes when you're ready. You've got a 30-second warning, and thank you for joining us this evening. Please.
Thank you. I'll be quick. So yeah, thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak in relation to this application. There was one initial application for this plot, and it was dismissed or withdrawn due to the bulky size of it, and we feel that this one is no better. The local neighbours have also objected, and you might see that in the paperwork already. So we live at 83A Oxford Road, to the north of the property, and ours is semi-detached, and so we get most of our light through from the southerly side into our kitchen window, which also gives us loads of natural light. This will basically the new block of flats will just completely overshadow our property and block out this natural light. So couple of points. So in terms of loss of light, it's going to be very imposing. It's going to be a vertical brick wall as soon as we can look outside our kitchen window. And with the increased stories, our garden would lose quite a bit of sunlight in the afternoon. With in terms of privacy, with obviously more occupants and more windows backing onto our property, they'll probably be able to see into the back of our garden quite easily. This is going to reduce our enjoyment of the outdoor space. With noise, obviously, with a family that were living next door, we can't object to that. But with 5 dwellings, with numerous cars, more visitors, deliveries, and open windows during the warmer months, you can maybe know from your own experience that that's going to cause a lot of excess noise that's not particular at this present time that we've experienced. So with 5 dwellings, 1 parking space per flat just doesn't seem sort of logical. We're obviously more than 1 occupant. They could have up to 10 cars. So we're thinking about the parking space that is provided, which is 5, but where would the additional parking go? And obviously, it's a very busy road. Lots of buses, lots of people walking on the pavement. We would just expect all the additional cars and visitors coming to the site. They'd have to kind of park on the roads fairly close by. We have concerns about the waste storage as well. The provision is for 3 big 1100 wheelie bins, which, again, if these are going to be pushed onto the road by the occupiers, all these bins are going to be taken up on the pavement, and it's going to be blocking people passing back and forth. So, on the whole, we would like to say that we would like to see the area, the property developed, but with a residential property for a family, not for semi-occupiers.
Thank you so much. I'll see if anyone from the committee's got any questions or clarification. I can't see any, so I'll say thank you very much for your time and your representation this evening. I now turn to our next speaker, which is Mr. Is it AJ Mogai?
Yeah.
Thank you. Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mogai. I think you've heard me go on, so we've got 3 minutes. As everyone else does, you'll get a warning at 30 seconds. So thank you for joining us, Sydney. Please, when you're ready.
Great. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address you guys this evening. Thank you, Catherine, for a great presentation of the application. Also, thank you for all the ongoing support that you've given us as we've it's been mentioned already. We had an application that was in previously. We took the decision to withdraw that, taking on board the comments that were put forward to us. We're not looking to do something here that is not going to fit in. And the biggest reason for that is because since 2011, I myself have lived on Oxford Road in that stretch. I've still got friends and family who live in the very locality of the site as well. So it's very important for us to look at having a proposal where the design is of high quality and it fits into the direct properties adjacent to it, but also in a wider scale. And I feel like we've been able to work together with Catherine to be able to get to that point. There's a lot of care that's gone into looking at the scale of the property, what the proposal is, and the effect it will have on the adjacent properties, and we've taken all that into consideration. Things like the openings ensure that the neighbouring amenities are not compromised while providing future occupants high quality internal and external spaces. We've thought about the meeting space, we've thought about the view from the road, and any detrimental effect, and we'll try to mitigate those. In reality, the proposal seeks to replace a dilapidated property that's poor quality, and it fails to make the best use of quite a large plot. We've tried to work hard to get something that fits. The property that's there at the moment really isn't fit for purpose right now. Up until around 18 months ago, it was actually a licensed 6-bed HMO. So the volume of people that were living on site was never a concern before. If we actually look at a little bit more detail of the property directly to the south of the site, although it looks like a townhouse, it's actually 3 individual flats. So, you know, there is that kind of development in the area already. And so looking at this, I feel like with respect, I'd ask that the delegated officer's recommendation is to approve the scheme.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll ask committee if you've got any questions or clarification. Just quickly from me, you mentioned you've worked hard to ensure that the residential amenity of neighbouring properties won't be affected. So we've heard from our first speakers that they're concerned about the overlooking of their garden. Could you maybe just comment on how you designed the property to try and minimise as best you can?
Yeah, of course. So that was one of the big considerations that we took in withdrawing the first application. It was very big, it was very blocky. Okay, and you know, in hindsight, we can look back at that and say, actually, yeah, fine, fair enough. So I'm not sure if you can actually pull up the plans again, because what we've tried to do in this version is actually not have just a solid wall to elevation. We've stepped in the back of the property. We've sloped the ridge height as well from one side to the other, so it's not so overpowering. We should be able to see on the footprint.
There's the side elevation looking.
Yeah, so I mean, even here, if we look at the rear elevation there, you can see how it kind of steps in.
Yeah.
And then if we look at the footprint as well, in relation to the adjacent properties, it doesn't extend further back than the single stories of the adjacent properties. We've looked at provision of light. We've made sure, you know, we've followed policy on everything that we possibly could to be able to make sure that we don't have any negative impact on anything adjacent.
Thank you very much. Are there any further questions? I can't see any. Oh, I might say, can we leave that up actually, because I think it's quite useful for us to be able to get a sense of the scale. That's okay. Perfect. Well, thank you very much for your time this evening. I now call upon our final speaker on this application, Councillor Andy Fulsham. Good evening, Councillor Fulsham. You know the rules, so 3 minutes when you're ready. And we'll
thank you, Chair, Committee. Yeah, it's a pleasure to join you this evening, and I'm speaking as board member for Appington Dunmore Wales fund as proposed. I'm grateful for the chance to speak about some elements of the application I believe can't actually be rectified by planning conditions. Firstly, location. You'll have heard that the site is located on one of the main routes out of Abingdon. However, its entrance is within 10 metres of a side road giving access to over 60 properties. And it's only 60 metres from the major junction of North Court Road, which is also a major bus stop. Adding a minimum of 5 cars, more likely heading on to 10, this adds congestion to a clear local choke point. Not only absolute congestion there, but it's also likely to increase the likelihood of accidents. And that's before we consider adding in the problems related to waste collections. The committee have had their attention drawn to the County Council Highways Liaison Officers comments from 15th November, objecting because of the bin storage design, but allowing for the large Euro-style wheelie bins to be used. That would require refuse vehicles to drive or reverse onto the site. I think I've got actually the greatest respect for our Biffa crews, but I doubt this will be possible on the busy Oxford Road. It seems more likely that the bins will need to be left at curbside. That would be unacceptable for these large Euro bins or 5+ standard domestic wheelie bins in a location so close to this bus stop and on quite a narrow pavement. And finally, I want to address the issue on which the earlier application for the site founded. It's simply out of keeping with the area. This stretch of Oxford Road is characterised by large properties, and as the officer said, set back from the road with long gardens and driveways that afford parking for residents' cars. There is no space for on-street parking from a high-density development, and there is actually only one high-density development, which is the one variously being described as townhouses or apartments directly to the south of this site. That's actually what looks like 4 townhouses, but on a double width plot. this type of development really, it's much more suited to the town centre or edge of town centre location.
30 seconds left.
Therefore, I'm asking you to reject this.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Councillor Paulsham. Are there any questions for you? I think just very quickly from me, just in terms of the waste management, so we've got a condition, should we be reminded to approve this, that's going to provide details of waste recycle store and implementation. So could you just expand with me on what, again, were we minded to approve this? What, I mean, you have a concern, and we've heard other concerns about these bulky, bulky bins. I guess the alternative to that, assume if this was approved, would be to have the individual bins per flat, which I guess would be 5, 10, or 15 bins if you include the little caddies as well. I guess just so I'm clear, so your argument is that there is no real waste management provision on this site that would be appropriate, because I assume you wouldn't think 15 bins, smaller bins on this site would be appropriate either.
I don't think that would work. I think it's outside for the particular site. I accept the site needs redevelopment. The particular problem that I pointed out was the doors opening from the waste storage area would actually obstruct the turning splay into the site there. And make it hard to maneuver. I could see that if no obstruction, a waste vehicle could get in with careful manoeuvring. I think in practice, they're likely to ask for bins to be left at the curbside.
Understood. And can I just ask, the site immediately to the south is the one that's 4 townhouses, right? Yes. I don't suppose you know, just from your local knowledge, like, what their waste management is. I assume it's individual bins.
That's individual bins. Also, it's worth noting that is a development from nearly 10 years ago, before the current local plans were in place.
So thank you so much. Are there any further questions for Councillor Paulsham? I can't see any, so thank you for joining us this evening. And now we'll turn to any questions of our officer. So questions for Catherine. Councillor Foxall.
Thank you, Chair. Catherine, we've heard from the neighbours, the property, about their concerns about the size of the mass of the building directly to the south. I'm very sympathetic to that, particularly in winter. There's going to be a big loss of light, and I'll just ask you a bit more about your professional opinion about that, please, and the angles and things like that.
Yeah. So when I was looking at that, again, you can see on the, so sort of setback, looking at the rear building line, you can see setback on 83A where the sort of single story extension comes out, and then to the south of that would be the main bulk of the proposed building, and then the 2-story bit juts out. I think it's just over 4 metres. So it in line with 83A, the rear building line's the same, but 83A has a single story extension at the back, and this would be equivalent to a 2-story with a sort of sloping roof. So I have had regard to that in terms of sort of light levels. There would be an element, some loss, but it's not significant because it doesn't relate to the sort of full height of the building. It's that 2-story element at the back with the sloping roof. I've also looked at 45-degree rules in terms of how far out that would come in relation to neighbouring properties, and it meets the requirements in terms of sort of visibility out and not blocking outlook. So yeah, I think accepting that there would be some loss of light parts of the day, but it's not significant enough because it doesn't come a long way forward beyond the single story extension. The other elements I looked at there in terms of privacy or concerns over loss of privacy. There are existing 2-story windows on an existing building, and it's a sort of expected arrangement within a row of suburban houses that you look out onto a garden, and there's a degree of overlooking towards either side. The way that this is arranged, it wouldn't introduce significant harm in that respect because there would still be that existing arrangements. It's not as though we're windows are being introduced that allow sort of direct looking into habitable rooms or immediately to the side. So on balance, yeah, we're satisfied in terms of amenity, outlook, and light.
Catherine, I was a little surprised when I read this that there's only 5 parking places on this site. I mean, it does that meet standards, does it? Like, you don't need visitor parking for 5 dwellings on this site, so highways are happy with it.
Highways are happy with it, but particularly in this location where it's very easy to walk to North Court Parade, where there's a small group of shops. You've got a bus stop close by to get directly into Abingdon. It's cyclable, walkable into Abingdon. So for that reason, yeah, but the 5 spaces were acceptable, and we wouldn't push for any more than that.
Thank you. Are there any further questions on this? Councillor Horton.
Thank you, Chair. Catherine, there's highways objection on the original application talking about widening it. Has that one been removed? I didn't see reference to it, so I was assuming it was removed. I wanted to double check.
Yeah, the latest one, there was yeah, so where you can see the red lines there, that's the existing width of the access in the driveway. So there would be no change to the access width itself, but within the sites you can see the sort of driveway hard standing is slightly wider, and that's where the widened driveway is being achieved. But yeah,
the width of the gate is the same, is it?
Yes, yeah, that's correct. The outstanding objection from highways is over the doors opening out into that driveway area.
And that's the only outstanding.
It is, yeah. And we're looking to so there's no objection from waste management team on the amount of storage, the location, the method of collecting it. But we have added a condition to finalise the detail of the store itself, and that could be a way to manage the door. As proposed, it wasn't harmful enough to sort of secure revision to this stage or to warrant refusal.
I think just in terms of the waste management, and again, like these slightly larger bins. So I guess I just want to get my head around this. So the condition we're putting in place will direct to the sort of the bin storage, but also where the bin should be collected from, or not.
It's just to secure the storage, what the storage looks like, the materials, and it also we ask for details of the levels. We want to make sure that it's level access, so the bins can be wheeled out in and out. As I envisage it, it would be the waste collection vehicle comes to the side of the road. The bins are wheeled out, emptied, and then returned within the site.
So it's not envisaged so it's not envisaged that the large. Sorry, I can't remember. It's not envisaged that it turns into the site to collect it. It's envisaged that someone comes onto the site, takes out the bins, and puts it in that.
That's my understanding. If there's any concern around that, the waste management condition could be widened to.
Because I think it would be good to, again, if there is depending what the recommendations, but I think it would be good to clarify that, because I think I would be very concerned about this large bin going out onto the road where it could block the pavement.
Yeah.
And similarly, I would be, now it might just be standard practice. And indeed, I live next to a place which takes out a big bin like this, and indeed, if I take it from where it is, put it on the street. So I assume, I guess my key thing is that standard practice? Does it need a condition, or does it need us to wind the condition, or is it just something that straightforwardly, commonsensically would be done with a bin on this site?
I don't think it absolutely needs a
clarification.
An additional condition or more detailed than an condition, and that's because waste management officer has come back and they're happy with what's proposed in regards to the layout, the capacity, and they haven't seen any barriers that would stop the collection happening. So I haven't questioned that further.
Understood. Thank you so much. Any further questions?
Yeah. No, we've got a bit bogged down on bin stores. So let's listen to the neighbours have said about the site line overlooking, etc. So presumably it's all be done to the regulatory
Yes, in terms of design guide standards, the 45 degrees,
That's right.
it meets that. And then the other elements in terms of privacy overlooking risk of dominance, that's been a planning judgment.
And we've seen it here, how they planned it a bit different, and it's reduced the height of the building in there, some areas in the roof.
Yes, there have been changes during the application to so originally the main ridge line was in line with that.
Right. I saw the red,
and that's been dropped down slightly, and that was done to make it more so there's that stepping up from 83A to the application site up to the sort of neighbouring townhouses. So it was more a case of character and dominance. I think, and then just assessing openings, the 2-story section on the back, that's been looked at, and isn't seem to be harmful to amenity.
And they're 2-bedroom plan.
Yes,
with 1 parking.
Yeah.
That's so really you can't get any more than 5 on there on that driveway. And then they have to be careful how they park. So I think while you've got bogged down on the waste bins, I was sort of thinking about the other amenities and for the neighbours, etc. But as long as and I have seen there's no objections. Again, I've read thoroughly through the objections and then I followed it through. So, and highways, of course, it was the bugbear for us, and they hadn't objected.
Right.
Make a comment to Catherine on looking at the plans. All the bedrooms are at the rear and look down the garden, don't they? And when that actually help with mitigating sort of viewing other people in their gardens, because all the daytime areas are at the front of the building.
I think there's a case that may help some degree. I think with you can't rule out people won't use their bedroom during the day, perhaps, but no, it's a fair point. Yeah, that could help to some degree.
Right. I can't see any further questions. I'm suggesting we move into debate, and to do so I need a motion. So would someone like to put forward a motion on this application? That's about said.
Yes, I think I'm happy to propose that we accept the application, yes.
Do I have a seconder for that motion?
No, you beat me.
Sorry, it's hard for me to keep track. It's easier on Teams, you can see where the hands were up. Right, okay, Councillor Foxall, thank you. Right, we have a motion to approve the officer's recommendation, so please, open for debate.
Well, I would just like to say these things are occurring, and I do know mixed when neighbours have, but although it was an HMO before we just heard, and I think that it would be more regulated if it's a 2-bedroom flat, etc. I think that, and I've heard what the officers have said about mitigation, overlooking, and reducing the bulk, etc. So I really can't see any reason why I could not support this application.
Anything further?
Yes, I think I'm proposing it because I think it's a sort of accommodation that I think should develop in this sort of area because it's got good communication. It's close to the town centre. It's on a very good bus route. I know because I travel it very often. Yes, I think in the general scheme of things, these are the sorts of properties that we ought to be developing in the future.
Anything further? In which time to say, let's take a vote on this application. So all those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? That's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. So that's approved. Thank you so much. Right, I now move on to the final item on the agenda, which is agenda item 10, appeals information. to receive the appeals information report from the head of planning, to consider and note the appeals information report. Can I say so noted?
Yes, so noted.
So noted, given that it is no appeals, no appeals. So noted. Okay, well, thank you very much. That leaves me to say thank you so much to our officers, thank you so much to all of our speakers, and indeed thank you to you councillors for some lively debate. Thank you very much. And with that, Susie, can you please stop the live stream? Thank you so much.